Dennis, I don't know if you can see this, but we're in the middle of a wind gust right now. This is what they're worried about. And a lot of people say, you know, if we were logging more, if we were thinning more, if we were able to have these projects begun and completed without the lawsuits that happen, we wouldn't have these catastrophic fires. What's your position on that? Do we need to get out there and log more? Family members were actually here first. They were waiting at the Missoula airport for that 3 o'clock Allegiant flight to land, and some of them were already fighting back tears as they were waiting for the passengers, their loved ones, to get off of that plane. A lot of them had been at the Jason Aldean concert just a couple of hours earlier. You could see the anxiety in the faces of those waiting, and when their family members finally made it to the terminal, there were more tears and long hugs. It was so emotional to watch these reunions because everyone was just realizing that they'd been in this mass shooting, but they were now home and they were safe. We're just by Old Highway 93 and Trader Brothers. We're in a giant plume of smoke that stretches from Florence just to the outside of Lolo. As we stand here, there is bits of debris raining down on us. The good news, I've touched it. It's not warm now, but I hope that you can see just how surreal and, you know, we've used the word apocalyptic. If you look right now, Eric, if you could swing that around, there's a helicopter bucket, like coming right over the freeway. Either on its way to fill up or to dump. If customers aren't faithful anymore and they shop around, how does anyone stay in business? Well, that brings us to Bob Ward's. Any of their popular merchandise you can find online, yet Bob Ward's has been in business 100 years. How does that happen? They weren't caught with their pants down. Many believe suicide has become a bigger issue than bullying. After several suicides in the Mission Valley last spring, the student leaders of St. Ignatius High School went to their teachers and said they want training to know what to do if they have a classmate in crisis, because they know often a young person contemplating suicide will reach out to their peers before their parents. Western Montana has lost Macy's, Kmart, Sears, some Staples stores, Hastings, and JCPenney's is closing its Helena store. It's what some economists call the death spiral of retail. How we shopped has changed dramatically. In fact, I can order a pair of shoes on my phone right now while we talk. So is this the reason department stores around the country are failing? Because we'd rather shop with our phones than our feet? Or are the department stores around the country failing us? I go on special assignment to find out who's going to win in the age of Amazon. Now, Maris just won another honor through the American Protege contest, and so she's going to be performing an original piece called Liar for a couple of days, you know, at that place called Carnegie Hall.
I think I've heard of that.
Yeah, Carnegie Hall, right? We have links to her social media pages where you can hear more from her on our website, kpax.com. And here's my own personal signed CD, so I'm hanging on to this.
Hang on that.
A company called Myriad had the patent for the BRCA gene testing for years. They're the ones that did the research and development. When I took the test some 7 years ago, it was around $4,000. But the patent has since expired, so we are likely to see more direct-to-consumer products offered at a much lower price, and many focus on different kinds of genetic abnormalities that could cause us health problems down the road. These things are about to become your nose's best friend. These are 40 horsepower fans that will be used to aerate the composting site. The fans before were 2 horsepower and couldn't possibly clean the air the way these will. The Montana Healthcare Foundation did a study taking a look at the president's proposal. It believes that Montana could lose about $5 billion in federal Medicaid funding between 2020 and 2026. But it's not just a story about Medicaid insurance in Montana. It's about the economy. The thing, so last Thanksgiving, I'm creating a beautiful fancy feast. I've got glazed this and brined that. And my husband says, I'm gonna make some corn pudding. I'm like, that doesn't really fit in with the image I'm trying to project here. Yeah. But he made it anyway. And it was the hit of the dinner.
Okay.
And everyone wanted the recipe. So of course, I call it, you know, Steve's one-up side dish. But now Tim Ryan has come home to Montana to celebrate the place he calls home and to honor the grandpa who was always by his side. It's the soundtrack of his life, a melody made while growing up on the Flathead Reservation in St. Ignatius. A glue gun can't fight cancer, but maybe it can defeat it in other ways. Tonight in this warehouse in Missoula, these cancer survivors are finding themselves again as they get lost in their own originality. But let us not forget what was really lost: Two brave men who paid the ultimate price to keep us safe. One, so young, working on just the second wildfire of his career. The other, an elite, experienced hotshot with a family legacy of firefighting. But both would die in Montana, killed by falling trees while fighting fire. 19-year-old Trenton Johnson recently graduated from Hellgate High School in Missoula. He was a member of the state champion lacrosse team. He enrolled at Montana State University, working towards a degree in engineering. You had to be on your toes to keep up with this kid.
He had an awesome sense of humor. Witty, like he was 3 steps ahead of the conversation, and he would come up with just snappy, witty statements.
Trenton followed in his big sister's footsteps to become a summer wildland firefighter, and he was excited when he got that first call to fight a fire in Utah.
He likes to work hard, he likes to be outdoors, so it was a really good fit for him, and he loved it. He was on the Bryan Head fire for 2 weeks in Utah, and he called me every single day and let me know how he was doing, like what he was doing. He absolutely loved working hard.
Then he was assigned to a fire burning near Seeley Lake, a small lightning-started fire that would eventually become part of the Rice Ridge Fire. But on July 19th, suddenly, a tree fell and hit him. He died at the hospital.
Some of the wording I heard was fast as a lightning bolt, and they just heard a crack, and that was it. 3 of them were able to get out of the way, and Trenton did not.
2 weeks later, it happened again. 29-year-old Brent Witham of California died August 2nd in the early days of the Lolo Peak fire. A tree fell and hit him while working on a fire line in the McLean Creek area. Brent is a member of the Vista Grande Hotshots stationed in San Bernardino, California. He left Montana a hero. He returned home as one to hundreds of fellow firefighters who paid their respects.
It's very emotional to see a fallen fire brother come out of the plane, and I feel pain as if it was my own brother.
Montana Governor Steve Bullock ordered flags in Montana flown half-staff in honor of Trenton and Brent and all other wildland firefighters lost in the line of duty. Montana's congressional leaders praised their bravery, saying Trenton and Brent's sacrifice will not be forgotten. Neither will this fire season. It was a tough one.
Why did this happen again? Especially so local and so close to all of us. It just, it's been a rough summer for firefighters all around.
We just ask that you keep the family and in your prayers, and the fellow workers, and all the firefighters that are out there right now on the line.
For decades, Americans devoured the big department store in town. They dressed up to shop at a place where they could buy toys to undergarments to pens, anything they wanted, all in one place. But are these brick and mortar stores now the ones on the clearance rack? The teardown of the Missoula Mercantile is perhaps a metaphor to what is happening to the American department store. We shop online now, and we have absolute power over who gets our money.
We've come to the end of an era in retail. A lot of people are looking at what we're going through right now as sort of being a transitionary time. I look at it as being more of an abrupt change, and a lot of that is being driven by technology, but it's all changing the way consumers and brands interact in the retail space.
Put on your Sunday best, kids. We're going to Sears.
Oh, but not Sears. It's smartphones and shopping apps, eBay and Amazon Prime.
There's more for your life at Sears.
They have all eroded traditional shopping models and trips to the mall. And this genie is out of the bottle for good. When Governor Steve Bullock addressed the Zero Suicide Conference in Helena this fall, he said he often feels like the consoler in chief, since he has attended so many funerals of people who've chosen to end their own lives. Many of them were young Native Americans. Tonight I go on special assignment to hear what it's going to take to save lives on our state's reservations. Scroll through Josiah Nichols' Facebook page and you'll see a teenager who loves his family, has a great head of hair. He's a basketball player for Two Eagle River School, a talented native singer, and someone who has scores of friends. Many of those friends filled the hallways of the hospital the night Josiah decided to die by suicide.
I don't know exactly what happened that day. I just remember my phone call, getting my phone call. And I was crying and I was shaking. It was his face, so I tried to call him. His phone just rang and rang and rang.
A week before his death, he posted this on Facebook. They were words of despair. They were followed by words of love and support from his friends, but it did not change what was about to happen.
My baby was laying there. My heart, I could feel it shattered. All I wanted was my baby. I just wanted him to open his eyes.
Josiah was just 16 years old. His death was one of 20 confirmed suicides in the Mission Valley community since last November. There's no statistic pointing to how many were attempted. Montana's Native Americans have the highest rate of suicide in a state that already has one of the highest rates in the country.
I'm in part haunted by what you're here to work on.
Last month, Governor Steve Bullock launched the Zero Suicide Academy. It's a major component of a statewide plan to reduce suicides. The goal here is to share ideas that people can take back and put to use in their own communities, to examine what's happening on their own reservations. There are no easy answers, but the conversation is well underway.
Suicide isn't something that you can address and it's going to go away. It's a symptom of much bigger issues. And so what we want to think about is what else do we need to do? Who do we need to pull together? What have other tribes done that have helped them address this as a key issue of wellness across Indian country?
Suicide is also a topic that's now talked about openly in schools because it has to be.
We've taken an open stance as far as it's not something that should be pushed behind or not talked about when somebody comes up or has questions or it comes up in class. It's something that we have agreed as a staff to discuss, or maybe not there at a different time with those students.
It's an issue that affects young people deeply as they watch their peers and friends struggle. Many believe suicide has become a bigger issue than bullying. After several suicides in the Mission Valley last spring, the student leaders of St. Ignatius High School went to their teachers and said they want training to know what to do if they have a classmate in crisis, because they know often a young person contemplating suicide will reach out to their peers before their parents.
It'd be nice to know what to do in that situation, so that's why we want the leaders in our groups to be trained in something, so that way when their friends do reach out or people do reach out to them, they do know how to handle it the right way.
There's no one reason why someone might choose to end their life. For Native Americans, tribal leaders say the answer to their pain cannot be suicide. That pain needs a voice.
While this is a really sad time for us, it is also an opportunity for us to really put a mark in the sand and do business differently. We are really saying that we need to figure out a different way of addressing our issues that have gone back for generations.
Sherry often reads the note her son left behind, searching for answers that just aren't there. She can still see his face in photos, hear his voice singing back at her on an iPad, but it's not the same.
I don't get to see him anymore. I still wait up for him, and I know he's not going to come home.